Hi everyone, the World Chess Championship 2023 just started a few days ago, and until April the 30th, Ding Liren and Ian Nepomniachtchi, also known as Nepo, will try to become the new world champion. This happened after current world champion Magnus Carlsen decided not to defend his title, so a new era is about to start. And by the way, let me know in the comments if you have any favorite to win this match. So let's get started with this second game where Nepo completely demolished Ding Liren with the black pieces after Ding unsuccessfully tried a new idea. So the game started with d4 and after knight to f6, c4, here Nepo went e6, and after knight to f3 and d5, we just transposed into a queen's gambit. And in this very common position, white normally tries going knight to c3, g3 is also a very common idea, even taking on d5 is possible, but normally white delays this idea. But here Ding went h3, which is a very surprising move to make in this particular position because the move h3 doesn't seem to accomplish anything. And it is easy to criticize this move because white lost the game, but this move has some ideas. First of all, white wants to bring the game into an unknown territory, and this move might have ideas to prevent moves like bishop to g4 after black takes on d5. For example, here after c5, white might take on d5, and after pawn takes, we see that now the move bishop to g4 is not possible for black. But here Nepo played a very interesting move and captured the pawn on c4. Because taking on c4, which leads to the queen's gambit accepted, is very often played in a position on which white played the move knight to c3 instead of h3. So black's idea is to go into a familiar position where the move h3 doesn't make a lot of sense, or at least it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And here after e3, white will normally get the pawn back easily, and here black played the move c5. Just want to mention that trying to hold the pawn is not very good because here white can simply attack those pawns. For example, after a4, here a6 is not possible because after capturing on b5, the a6 pawn would be pinned. And after c6, pawn takes and pawn takes, here white has this very common idea of going b3, and these pawns are just going to fall. For example, after pawn takes, white simply captures on b5, and then the pawn on b3 will fall. So this position is already even better for white because black is wasting time by trying to defend the pawn. So after e3, c5 is the common idea, trying to counterattack on the center. And after bishop takes, here black played the move a6, which is a very common idea, planning to go b5. Here white castled, and after knight to c6, white continued with the move on knight to c3. Here the move a4 is possible, but on one hand white is stopping b5, but on the other hand this b4 square has been weakened. But this is still quite playable for white. But instead, Ding played the move knight to c3, which makes a lot of sense, developing knight. And after b5 and bishop to d3, Nepo continued with bishop to b7, fianchettoing the bishop. And here we see a drawback of the move b5, which after a4, white is counterattacking these pawns. And after b4 and knight to e4, this c4 square might potentially become a strong square for white's pieces. In this particular game, white didn't manage to get any advantage by getting that square, but generally speaking, the c4 square has become weakened. And here in this position, Nepo played a very interesting idea, and he went knight to a5. Nepo's style is very dynamic, so he normally likes to keep the tension over the board, and in this game things went fantastically well for him. But let's evaluate some alternatives in this position. So here taking on e4, even though it might be possible after bishop takes, white gets this very centralized bishop, now this knight on c6 is pinned, so maybe white can try to play for an advantage here. Or another trade might be to take on d4 because this pawn on c5 is being attacked. After pawn takes and pawn takes, here white gets an isolated pawn, but this pawn is centralized pawn, controlling the e5 square. And more importantly, after taking on d4, we see that now this bishop can develop, which was not possible with the pawn on e3. So this is another position on which white might try to play for an advantage. That's why Nepo wanted to play sharper and went knight to a5, putting pressure on the knight on e4. And here Ding played a move which from a practical point of view was quite risky. Maybe it is understandable because he was playing as white, so he might want to press for a win, and went knight takes f6. But I just want to mention that here the safer option was to take on c5. And after bishop takes and pawn takes, even though white gets an extra pawn, this pawn is going to fall. Black might even try to go after the pawn straight away with the move knight to d7. And this position is fairly balanced. Maybe white can try to think of an advantage in the long run because white gets the two bishops, but in this particular position, the bishop on c1 is not very active, but this was still a very safe alternative for white. But instead, white went knight takes f6, and here Ding, as he said in the press conference, was mainly expecting queen takes f6, and here in this position, white might have ideas to go e4 and try to get some play against the queen on f6. So this was possible, quite sharp, but in this position, white is trying to get the initiative. But instead here Nepo captured with the g-pawn, which worsens black's pawn structure, but on the other hand, black has this idea to go rook to g8, putting pressure against white's king. So this is a very interesting way to play, to complicate the game and trying to play for a win. And in this position here, white made the first probably dubious move, which is the move e4. Here, considering that black's king is on e8, even though black's king is still not under attack, it was interesting to open the position a little bit. That's why here taking on c5 and then going e4. Here first of all, white is neutralizing this very strong bishop, and now white can also develop the bishop on c1. So this was an interesting option for white. But instead, Ding went e4, which might be similar if black captures on d4. Here black is not even winning a pawn because after knight takes, this is a very common tactic. The knight on d4 is not hanging because after queen takes, white gets bishop to b5, giving a check with a discover attack on the queen. So here white is winning a lot of material. That's why Nepo went c4, trying not to open the position, and probably Ding missed this move. Otherwise, I don't understand why he didn't capture on c5 first. And after bishop to c2, queen to c7, overprotects the pawn on c4 and also eyes the f4 square so that the bishop cannot develop to the square. And after bishop to d2 and rook to g8, black already has, at least from a practical point of view, a preferable position, because white is having problems to coordinate his pieces, and black has this very simple idea of going to f5 sooner or later in order to open the position for black's pieces. So here after rook to c1, black castle long, and here Ding played another move which was probably not that good, but in any case it's quite hard to play this position as white. Maybe a move like king to h1 might already be a prophylactic idea, getting out of the g file. But after bishop to d3, even though black cannot capture on c3 because the pawn on c4 is pinned, white doesn't have any real threats there, so after king to b8, here white went rook to e1, and maybe the idea was to go bishop to f1 in order to protect the g2 pawn, but white did not have enough time because here Nepo played the very nice f5, just trying to open the center in order to create threats against the pawn on g2. And now the bishop has to keep an eye on the e4 pawn and went bishop to c2. Just want to mention that after pawn takes, we can now see black's main idea, which is to take on d4, and after knight takes, now we see how these two pieces combine to create a very nice attack. After rook takes, black is having a false checkmate. If king to h1, queen to h2 is a checkmate, or after king to f1, black has this very nice rook takes f2, giving more material, but after king takes, queen to h2, and king to e3, if king to f1, queen to g2 is a checkmate, or if queen to e3, bishop to h6 is a very nice checkmate. We see how the queen and the two bishops combine, and white is simply getting demolished. But after bishop to c2, we see how white is wasting time by going bishop to d3 and bishop to c2 in a position on which black is creating threats. So this is already quite bad for white, and black's position is already just dominating. Here black played knight to c6, other moves were possible, but just wanting to increase the pressure against the pawn on d4. And in this position Nepo tried to counterattack by going bishop to g5, and here black might even play rook to d7 because this move bishop to g5 is just a one move threat that doesn't achieve anything, but Nepo found a more spectacular way to continue and sacrifice the exchange with rook takes g5. And after knight takes and knight takes, black is not given a lot of material. Black also gets the two bishop. This bishop might come to h6 or to c5, so black's pieces are extremely active. This way of playing really reminds me of the legendary former world champion Garry Kasparov, who really liked to sacrifice material for the initiative. So here in this position, black is already even winning because black simply has too many threats. Here there's also an idea to create a discover attack against the queen, for example by going knight to b3. That's why here white played queen to h5, and after f6, here white went knight to f3, which makes sense, trying to trade the knight on g5 for the knight on d4. White could capture more material, but after bishop to c5 and knight takes, Queen to f4 is coming. There's also the idea to create a discover attack against the pawn on f2. Black also has ideas to go bishop to d6 and queen to h2, or even queen to a5 is already quite annoying because this knight on f6 is lacking squares. So here black again has too many threats. That's why Ding decided to retreat with the knight. And after knight to f3, here again black has many options, but I really like Nepo's approach, going for a very simple position with almost no risk, and took on c2, and after rook takes, bishop takes, now black gets 2 pawns for the exchange, so the material balance is perfectly fine for black, plus black gets the better position. And here after rook to d2, Nepo doesn't want to trade because after knight takes, the knight would attack the bishop, that's why bishop to d6 is a better move. And now again here black still gets the idea to go rook to g8, but additionally, after king to h1, Nepo went c3, and we now see how this c pawn is going to become a pass pawn and a very powerful pawn. So here after pawn takes and pawn takes, Ding went rook to d4, and after c2, this pawn is about to promote. Here white tried queen to h6, controlling the c1 square, but after e5, in this position Ding resigned because even though the rook is in the middle of the board, it has no good squares to go. Rook to d2 is the only square it might go without being captured, but in this position black would simply promote and get a lot of extra material. So this was a very crushing victory for Nepo, so it will be interesting to see if Ding can recover from this defeat. Otherwise, Nepo will continue pressing for the win in the match. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. This will help me a lot to reach more chess fans. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.